Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, and of course, your pharaoh of physical media, Robert Meyer Burnett. And I'm sorry to say that your favorite German, my favorite German, all the way from Saarbrücken, Deutschland, he's not here today. He's not here today because he decided to go see Scream in English. Because where he lives, movies are dubbed most of the time. So there's special showings when you can see an American film in English. And that's where Dieter is right now. He is that much of a dedicated cineast. So I apologize for Dieter not being here. However, I have somebody else. Somebody that you also know and love. The most knowledgeable man in the entire, he's covered the home entertainment beat for over 20 years at his website, thedigitalbits.com. Please welcome to the show, the great, the one and only, Mr. Bill Hunt. Bill, welcome to Let's Get Physical Media. Or as we like to say, let's get physical media. One day I'll sing that on cue or on cue.
I was just enjoying your opening music there. I was thinking, now's the time on Sprockets wenn wir dance.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I miss I miss Dieter, but it's great to have you. It's great to have you, and obviously we've known each other for quite some time. And you know, this is only our second show of 2022, and there's still big media releases happening. This week it was announced that The Godfather is coming out in 4K finally in various multi-disc sets.
Yep.
That's definitely a grail disc for me. In terms of what Coppola is doing, I hope we'll get a 4K of One from the Heart at some point.
Yeah, they seem to be Zoetrope seems to be going back and they're doing restoring the whole Coppola catalog in 4K. So I would think at some point that's fairly likely.
I mean, The Outsiders is beautiful. Apocalypse Now is incredible. So
yeah, and I'm Godfather release, by the way. So that comes on March 22nd, and it is when the announcement happened, it was a little bit confusing what exactly we were getting because there's a wide release version and then a more elaborate box set, Ultimate Limited Collector's Edition box set. So the fear was that there was only going to be just the films in the first one, and then all the extras would kind of be on the second one. But after a lot of investigating, a full day of investigating, what I found out is that it's the disc-based content is the same in both sets. So there'll be it's a 5-disc set that includes all the Godfather 1, Godfather 2, and Godfather Coda, the new version of Godfather 3 in 4K. Plus, you get another 4K disc that's got the original theatrical cut and the 91 cut of Godfather 3. And then you get Blu-ray bonus discs that have legacy content. And there's also some new special features and stuff. And that's going to be the same in both sets. And then the deluxe set has special packaging. It's got a book and it's got some art cards. And there was a little bit of additional confusion because in the UK, it's actually a 9-disc set and not a 5-disc set. Well, it turns out that in the UK, they're also getting Blu-ray versions of the films in that same package because a lot of times in Europe, there's just no digital copy or there's very little access to digital copies. So they're going to get the Blu-rays in the box. And then here, my guess is the Blu-ray versions will be available separately.
It's very exciting. It's definitely for me. I mean, I think of the 4K format as the end of the road for physical media. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just don't see, given that the studios are they've got one foot already in the digital door. I mean, really. I mean, disc is kind of an afterthought at this point. I just don't see anybody doing an 8K disc format. I just don't see it. And the other thing is that you really don't. There really is no need for an 8K disc format.
Right.
I think most people wouldn't be able to see the difference between 4K and 8K. There's almost no content that you could. I mean, you could maybe do like 70mm films or IMAX films in 8K, but I just don't think anybody. There's no demand. There's no need for it.
We don't have a screen that would even benefit that.
Right.
I mean, unless you're going to play it on a home IMAX, maybe.
Yeah, and see, the interesting thing is for a while there, I didn't go to CES this year, and I heard it was a ghost town. They actually canceled one day. A bunch of companies pulled out because of COVID and all that stuff. But the last time I went to CES was about 4 years ago, and at that time, everybody was talking about the next thing would be like auto stereoscopic displays.
Right.
So 3D without the glasses, basically. But at the time, a lot of companies are working on it. They're definitely working on it.
I'm sure James
It's
Cameron
getting
is
better and
too.
better. The problem is the displays that would be to really do auto stereoscopic well, you have to have a dedicated processor for each like 5 degrees of the screen.
Mm.
Now, because of COVID, we're in the middle of a chip shortage, right? So it's like the idea that we're going to be able to have enough processors to make that happen anytime soon is kind of preposterous. I have a feeling auto stereoscopic will still be kind of the next thing, probably auto stereoscopic 4K. But we're talking, quite a few years, at least 2, 3, 4 years in the future,
I mean,
and I think a lot of it's going to depend on the economy and on all that stuff.
I mean, I've always believed, it is my belief that the 21st century will ultimately be the century of gaming. And that I think that whether it's going to be in 3-dimensional space or holographic imaging or something, I see gaming as being where movies were in the 1920s right now.
Yeah.
And I
But
think
see, one thing we have to remember is that, there's been all this talk lately of the metaverse, right? The sort of cyberpunk concept but that now Facebook is like trying to get into. But this whole idea of the metaverse is still going to require 3D glasses. It's going to require VR goggles. And there will always be a segment of the audience that's not going to be that interested in putting on goggles, right? So,
well, I think eventually we'll have you'll have immersive environments.
Yeah.
With the volume stages they have, where they're making the Mandalorian and other things now.
Yeah. And what you could see eventually is like these glasses that we're wearing, right? I mean, like Apple and Google Google Glass was a kind of an early attempt, but I think eventually when glasses like this will have little speakers in the sides and like a VR or AR augmented reality kind of display built into the lens, then it's a lot more practical. But I think, it was the same problem with Blu-ray 3D is that there's just a proportion of the audience that just didn't want to wear the glasses.
Yeah. But I do think, I mean, look, if movies were the art form of the 20th century, I think that gaming and virtual worlds are going to be the art form of the 21st century. I probably won't live to see much of it, but, it's still...
You never know. The stuff moves pretty fast, but yeah, I think you're right. I mean, definitely the in terms of the entertainment space, obviously streaming has kind of brought back this demand for long form storytelling. But I think more and more you'll see blurring of, will that big theatrical experience continue to be the way people get their content? Maybe for a while, but it seems more and more like streaming is kind of the genie's out of the bottle now, and streaming's kind of where it's at. And I think eventually you'll start to see more, augmented reality kind of things. And
yeah, I mean, maybe you'll go to theaters, and the theaters themselves will be those virtual spaces. You'll be able to participate somehow. I don't know what. Again, the technology hasn't been invented yet. We're now in the pre-sound era. The way the pre-sound era of filmmaking was in the 1920s, I think we're in the pre-virtual world era of gaming. I mean, gaming is incredibly sophisticated, obviously. And I think I'm always going to love narrative, but certainly young people don't love narrative as much as we did.
And I think part of that is just simply a side effect of the fact that they've had access to all the media they want.
Right.
I mean, we grew up in a time when you just didn't have any access to media.
Yeah.
Other than what was on three broadcast channels and maybe what was in your local theater.
When we were children,
video stores and home video and all that jazz. But now, like literally any piece of content you want is available. Not quite everything, but a lot more than ever before is available, like 2 clicks away via streaming or download, or you go on Amazon or some retailer and buy a disc, and a week later you're watching a movie, and that's amazing. And it does change the way people value content and where they consume content.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously with disc drives in like the PlayStation 5 and in Xbox.
Yeah, Xbox Series X.
It's definitely extended the life of physical media, I think. Because ultimately...
And I think the generational lifetime of those game systems is about a decade, right? So I think, as we've said before, we've talked before about this. You can definitely see a reliable market for discs for at least another 10 years. Certainly collectors, it's we have to be comfortable with the fact that discs are the niche now.
Yes,
right? They're collectors for the collectors, the super enthusiasts.
Well, I mean, it's like stuff that's come out like this week. I I got this. This is Mulholland Drive.
Oh
It's
yeah,
the 4K Mulholland Drive box set. Again, one of these Studio Canal specials. You know,
right.
it's got a book in it,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
got
yeah.
postcards and the movie in
Right.
4K. Now, I still like, being a collector. I like having these these things, and like I,
Right.
recently got this. I love these Studio Canal discs, the Howling 4K.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
box, and I will always buy these, but it's coming to the point where most of the movies that I would want on physical media I have.
Well,
You know,
yeah, there's that, and then there's also a lot of the things that I would like to buy TV show wise is not coming out. I mean, you look at all the Star Wars stuff. You look at For All Mankind. That's I think a Sony production, but it's on Apple TV,
yeah, and
and there's no disc of that. And
I don't think they'll put out discs because they want people to subscribe to those services,
yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
which I understand. I mean, I totally get it.
So I'm really intrigued by the conundrum of James Bond, right? So obviously, all of the Daniel Craig films and all the new stuff, the rights are now at Universal.
Right.
And they're releasing, for example, a 5-film Daniel Craig box set by it's MGM, but it's via Universal and their studio distribution services. But the rest of the Bond catalog seems to be, MGM got bought by Amazon.
Yeah.
So and this is the big anniversary, right?
This is
This
the
year,
60th anniversary of the Bond franchise,
right?
2022.
So the question is there going to be physical release, or are they going to just make them available exclusively in 4K streaming on Amazon Prime? Like, I don't know.
Right.
And you look at MGM, Kino Lorber Studio Classics is just going gangbusters,
And
releasing all kinds of amazing
they're doing a
4K stuff.
phenomenal job. They just had The Great Escape come out in
Yeah,
4K. They won retailer or a company of the year on some of the
yeah,
best
yeah,
year-end
yeah.
best lists.
They are really mining that catalog, and they're just the 4K catalog titles they're bringing out are phenomenal.
Yeah, and when they
And
handle
it's like, so, but then you go, well, what about Bond? What about Bond? I mean, there are lots of guys out there that would buy. It would not as many as maybe before, but I think there are certainly a significant number of people that would buy a Bond 4K box set.
Oh, I
But are we
absolutely.
going to get one? Like, I don't know. I don't know.
I would think that, I mean, they've done a pretty good job making Bond available on home entertainment formats.
They have, yeah, they
So,
absolutely have. But see, Amazon is kind of a wild card now.
yeah.
And so then, is it like is there a box set, but it's only an Amazon exclusive, or I just don't know. It's and that this is part of the confusion of the streaming era is that studios now are kind of locking down their content. I mean, Disney, for example, has got lots of great titles that would be amazing in 4K. In fact, I know for a fact that the Fox restoration team has finished like 30. There's 30 great 4K restorations that are done that are just sitting on the shelf. And like, for example, Patton is one that they did a brand new 4K remaster of that. I think you can see it on Stars in Europe internationally, but there's no, it's not on Hulu, and Hulu's not doing 4K as far as I know, and they're not putting it on Disney Plus, and they're not putting it out on disc. So it's like, these great restorations, the Die Hard sequels and stuff. There are a number of things that have been done that have been restored in 4K that we're just not getting access to, and it just doesn't seem to be a priority for Disney.
No, I don't think it is because their initiative, their IMAX enhanced initiative for the Marvel movies.
Yeah,
They didn't release those on disc.
yeah,
You can't. The 4Ks of the Marvel Universe films are not in IMAX enhanced format,
right,
and it's
right.
maddening.
It is. It's very frustrating,
Vincent Teo
especially for
and
collectors.
Vincent Teo, who does he's British, the
Mhm.
British guy that does. He was talking about how frustrating it is, and even he did a YouTube piece where he's saying, I this makes me not want to buy any Disney product because they're not putting their best foot forward. Then they had that big dump of titles toward the end of last year where they just put
Yeah,
out, it seemed like a fat last gasp for,
yeah. They put out a bunch of Pixar stuff. They put out all the Star Wars films, right? I mean,
yep.
but it kind of like the odd thing about that, and they blew all the Marvel catalog out, which is great. But it was kind of like it was just, yeah, a last gasp is a good way to put it. It's kind of like, okay, let's get all of this out now, and it was kind of all released without any fanfare. There was very little fanfare.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things like we know, which I never thought would happen. The director's edition of Star Trek: The Motion Picture
Right.
is currently, I guess I can say this, is currently in QC. It's
Okay.
done. It's finished, and
That's great.
there we've seen some certain things. I mean, there's some spectacular things in that I never thought would ever happen,
Yeah.
such as like we've seen the Enterprise leaving the space dock. They went back and they used the original elements of the Earth and the star field they didn't have time to put those in the shots, but
Right.
they were able to go back to the negative and do actual composites off the original
Yeah.
negative for the effect
And do
shots.
digital compositing, so it hasn't been run through an optical printer 10
Right.
times.
And it's just
Yeah.
spectacular. It's
Yeah.
incredible that we're getting this, and it's going to be on Paramount Plus first, but to
Yeah.
be able, and I would give it a theatrical release. I
Yeah,
mean,
I could see that happening. I could absolutely see that happening, and that'll eventually be on disc. And the latest I'm hearing is that the sort of second wave of Star Trek titles, Star Trek 5, 6, and then Generations, and the you'll start to see those around summertime.
right.
And then I think the motion picture is going to be like third or fourth quarter, kind of a special thing on Paramount Plus. But that'll eventually be on disc too, which is, hey man, at least that finally happened. I mean,
I mean, I never thought that was it was a triumph in 2001 when it came out originally, and now
yeah,
it's a triumph, and bringing back the same team to work on it,
yeah,
and I've seen a few things, and it just looks incredible. They've done
yeah,
some incredible work, and again, it's for Paramount Plus, obviously, to drive subscriptions there.
right,
That's the same way the
right,
Snyder Cut was driving
yeah.
subscriptions to HBO.
And here's the thing, like I'm totally fine with that. If they want to do a streaming exclusive window to justify the cost, I'm totally fine with that. But I just want to make sure that at some point the stuff comes out on disc as well. So those of us who are dying to get to buy that content can have a chance to actually buy it and own it on a disc.
And I've been talking a lot with George Feltenstein. He's come on this show, and I talked to him the other day, and I said, thank you for giving Second Sight access to that Hitcher negative.
Oh yeah.
Because the Hitcher they never had access. They couldn't find it, and it was really interesting. He was telling me that was actually made under the auspices of HBO Films, and HBO
That's
Films
fascinating.
was never really interested, other than their shows, in going back in. And so there's a couple of, I forget which other, he mentioned a couple of other
Yeah.
titles, but they're going to be able to get all that kind of stuff out. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
And to have it done by, I mean, I think Second Sight, my beloved Second Sight, they were the company that put Dawn of the Dead out, that amazing box
Yeah.
set,
Yeah.
and the care with which, I mean, they don't have a large catalog of titles, but the care with which they put into their releases is astonishing. And I
Yeah.
was even telling George this. I don't think even George was aware just how good Second Sight was, and I was singing their praises to him,
Yeah.
because they're one of these companies that if they put out a movie that you like, you should get their version, because it's usually the best. It's
Well,
the
and that's
best
what
presentation.
that's one of the interesting things right now is we are kind of sitting in this weird place where we're not exactly at the end of physical media, but we're definitely like we're over the hill, right? We're over the hump, and we're definitely kind of on the long tail of physical media. And yet there's all this great stuff coming out, and most of the studios they're going back and mining their own catalogs, and then the stuff they consider kind of too deep, they're remastering, but then they're licensing out to Criterion and Kino Lorber and Viavision Entertainment and all of these great Shout Factory and stuff. And so you get all these great boutique labels that are able to come in and give these sort of second tier films, but that are really beloved by fans. That kind of kid glove
Oh,
special treatment.
Imprint has been doing that with Paramount titles.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
they're finally putting out Conquest of Space, which is, for me, when I was a little kid, pre-Star Wars, my three
yeah,
favorite movies were War of the Worlds, Conquest of Space, and When Worlds Collide. And they put out
yeah.
War of the Worlds and When Worlds Collide, and now the third of the I call it the George Pal
Yeah, the sort of
triptych.
George Pal trilogy,
Yeah,
right?
the George Pal trilogy.
Exactly.
I mean, I hope that they would get licensed out. I'd love to see them do a box set, of all three.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
surprised, like, Paramount's never done anything like that before. I
No,
mean,
but the interesting thing is that Criterion did War of the Worlds. I mean, that's up, and they did Robinson Crusoe on Mars too,
yep,
right? So it's
yep.
like possible that might be a venue for that kind of thing. Oh,
We got some people are already firing in super chats to us.
nice.
Checkers the
One thing, hey, one thing I should really quick I should address is that this last week there has been a couple of rumors. One of which is that The Abyss is coming to 4K this year, and the other one is that Tombstone is coming to 4K this year. Now, these were not from me or the bits. They were other website sources posted that they're coming. And one of the advantages, whenever that happens, within 5 minutes, I get like 100 people messaging me and emailing me and saying, "Hey, is this true? Is this really happening? Is it true?" And because people know that, one of the advantages of having done what I've done for so long is that I can usually pick up a phone and get an answer on this stuff. So I did that this week, and what I've basically learned is that it's unlikely that those two titles are coming to 4K this year. Very unlikely that they're coming to 4K this year, but it's not like there's no smoke. I mean, there's some smoke, right? And so the thing of it is we know for a fact that Cameron has completed a 4K remaster of Abyss. We know that because we've been tracking it for a long time, and also he gave an interview with Space.com in December where he confirmed as much, that they had finished it and that would come out on disc at some point. But when you think about what's happening this year, obviously Abyss or Avatar 2 is coming out in theaters in December, right? So the question is, does it make sense to put it out on disc, the Abyss out on disc this year, or does it make more sense to say put Avatar 1 on 4K disc this year, leading up to the release of Avatar 2, and then when Avatar 2 comes out on disc, you put Abyss out then next year?
Well, that makes sense to me.
From a studio standpoint, that seems more likely. So I suspect we will get the Abyss on 4K disc. I just don't think it's happening this year. Now, as far as Tombstone, I don't know what the sourcing is on the rumors. I don't know what people are, what they've tapped into that leads them to believe it's coming out. Here's the thing. It would make sense if there's a 4K remaster of Tombstone happening right now, because next year is the film's 30th anniversary. 2023 is the anniversary. So it's possible that there's a 4K remaster happening, and it's possible that they could do something special with it next year, put it back in theaters, do a 4K disc release. But it's certainly not happening this year. That's my information, is not happening this year. So with any luck, maybe next year we'll get both of those. I would love to be wrong, and there's nobody that would love those two films on 4K disc more than me. Believe me.
The Abyss, I mean, I'd love to get. I've got the stinky tuna version of it, but it's it's not as good as it could be.
And Tombstone is like one of my all-time favorite. I mean, I love that film. I have nothing but love for that film. So I'm hoping that but it's probably but if they're coming, it would be next year, not this year. The one good thing though I just found out recently is that Heavy Metal is coming from Sony this year, or to 4K, because that film has an anniversary this year.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see that we'll see that probably in the second quarter sometime.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still, there's a lot of movies that haven't made it to 4K, and one of the things that I really like is when photochemically processed photochemical movies shot on film. When they do, like, that's why getting something like The Matrix or Die Hard or Blade Runner is so critical, because those restorations on 4K are stunning. It's unfortunate, like a lot of the Marvel movies were finished in 2K, and then you're getting upscaled versions, which is fine. I mean, they still look good if they've got Dolby Vision or something, but to really take advantage of the format and to see these new restorations of films, and some of them are like Die Hard never looked right on home video. It was always kind of smeary, but that 4K transfer, and that was done at Fox, obviously, is beautiful. Right. I mean, that is the
well. And then you look at the classic Star Wars films, and now I'm thrilled to have them all in 4K. It's great. I mean, whatever you feel about the tinkering and the special edition stuff and all that aside, I'm thrilled to have them in 4K. My one regret is that remaster, that 4K remaster, was done in 2012.
Yep.
If it had been done today, the quality would be even better, and there'd be much less use of like digital noise reduction.
Yeah.
Because back in like that, 2012, in that kind of, in the period right before then, it was pretty common still to crank up noise reduction a little bit, and and if it had been redone today, or if it were redone today, those films would look so much better than they do.
Well, I was just
But
watching there's obviously the original 77 versions are available by various people doing them. Fans have done them.
right,
I
4K
just
77 and
Yeah,
those
4K
that good stuff.
77, and then the despecialized version, they dumped the battle over the Death Star on YouTube.
Yeah,
And it's the color timing is just absolutely
yeah,
gorgeous.
yeah,
And the
yeah, yeah.
color timing of the Star Wars films in the high def era to me has always been lacking.
Yeah, the 4K was much better, but the Blu-rays were always problematic. They were
Yeah, they're
always problematic.
all over the place.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. And
it's
they
interesting.
kind of never really got it right until they got to 4K. So I mean, that's why I'm thrilled to have them, is because the films have never looked better in terms of an official release that we've gotten from a studio. They're still not perfect though, and it would be great to have like one more bite at that apple, and have a new restoration done that would be eliminate all the noise reduction or the excessive noise reduction, and
Yeah, I mean,
But it's like
I can't even
we live
watch.
in an era of riches. Like I kind of feel like it's crazy that some of the stuff we're getting. I mean, we're getting The Hitcher in 4K.
I I I,
Like,
I
how the
can't.
hell does that happen?
And not only that, but like what Blue Underground is doing, the final countdown.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't believe that and I love the final countdown, and it looks fantastic.
yeah. It's a great disc.
And Bill Lustig going back and doing things, Suspiria in 4K,
Yeah,
all the what Arrow has been doing,
right.
RoboCop's coming out in 4K. Um,
Yeah, it's
it's
amazing the content we're getting right now. Like I really feel like we're spoiled. And what's funny about that is that we're spoiled for great stuff, but yet like I hear more complaining than ever before about like, oh, this wasn't right or that wasn't right, or the cover artwork is so terrible. And it's like, oh man, I get it, but like we're getting we're getting these films in 4K. Like there's been kind of a perspective that's been lost, I think, a little bit. I really feel like you should never let perfect be the enemy of the good. I want perfect as much as anyone, but you should never let perfect be the enemy of the good.
Look, I agree. I mean, those Columbia box sets.
Yeah,
Some of those things like that's kind of weird. Oh, so I have Stripes in 4K. Okay.
right,
I
right.
love the fact that Stripes is in 4K. It's not
Yeah,
why.
but the crazy thing is they're going back and they're doing these new sort of Atmos mixes from the original mono.
Yeah.
And you'd think, oh, that's too revisionist, but oh my, I've been blown away at how they've been able to extrapolate that mono experience into an Atmos soundstage and still keep the character of that original mono experience. It kind of blows me away.
Oh no, it's amazing. And as long as they include, I mean, obviously Warner Brothers fucked up the Road Warrior, but they'll
Yeah,
fix it.
yeah,
And
they'll fix it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we have to give. I don't want to say give them a pass, but we do have to understand Warner's been through the ringer here with this, with the
yeah,
first with COVID and with AT&T and all the brain drain they had, all the people they got fired and left, and thank God George is back.
yeah. I mean, having George back there, it's unbelievable to me that these streaming services, which need this content.
Yeah,
I mean, when you have especially HBO Max is Warner Brothers,
right.
so they've got their vast library. And even George told me just how many movies they still have that have never made it to disc.
Yeah,
Classic stuff that not a lot of people even remember now, but they'll be able to put all that stuff out there.
yeah.
And
Well, I'm blown away that the Sergei Bondarchuk, the Russian version of War and Peace, the
oh my,
4-part version of War and Peace. I thought I'd never get to see that looking good, and then they released it. Then Criterion put it out on disc, and it's on HBO Max right now. It's
it's
on Criterion Channel and HBO Max. You can stream it.
it's unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah,
stuff like World on a Wire, which was the science fiction
yeah,
series that's kind of Matrixy. Criterion
yeah.
put that out. I was like, I can't believe it.
Right. I know.
or,
I know.
or
It's amazing.
and there's a lot of older Russian science fiction films I'd love to see make their way to
Yeah.
to
Russian
disc.
sci-fi would be. Oh yeah, I would love. I mean, because there's no other culture on Earth that is as invested in space travel as America is, other than Russia, and they've got a grand history of science fiction and cinematic science fiction. The problem is that when they used their own film stocks, a lot of those stocks didn't age well,
Nope.
and so that's why, for example, like War and Peace, there was a while there where it was thought that like we may never see that film again. You know what I mean? And it's like, and they were able to restore it and pull it out, and then Der Zala too has gotten a restoration, and it
Yep.
doesn't look as good as it could, but it looks better than I've ever seen it. And
No,
man,
I mean
there's
it's
so many of those sci-fi films I would love to see.
So, we talk about the demise of physical media, but we are also, and at the same time, we're in a golden age of physical media.
Mhm.
And I'm happy to be able to get, what I love is that a lot of these cult titles or lesser known titles are getting these great restorations because they might not wind up on streaming services.
Yeah. Well, here's an example. You remember the film After Effects? Here's Michael Felsher's the documentary on that was on that original DVD. He's expanded it into its own documentary, and you can get it now, the full expanded documentary with all kinds of like amazing extras and stuff. And this documentary is basically a history of Pittsburgh filmmaking, right? George Romero, John Harrison, that whole crew
Yeah.
that like, made all these great films, and so it's stuff like that, and it's say something else I just got that I'm really thrilled about. Do you know the animated film World of Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Don Hertzfeldt?
Yeah.
He just put out a Blu-ray of volume 1, 2, and 3.
Wow.
And it's only available. You can only get it on his website, bitterfilms.com.
Wow. I
And
didn't
it's
know that.
great. It's so good. It's got you can see it's got all three films, and it's got a little bit of extras on it.
Yep.
And that just came out. I think he kickstarted that, a Blu-ray version of that, and now you can buy it on his website. And it's like I couldn't resist that. I mean, that's World of Tomorrow is one of the greatest little pieces of science fiction filmmaking I've ever seen. It's
Yep.
just it's so innovative. It's
I didn't
fascinating.
know that it was out. I mean, I've often thought, like, for instance, I think I shot 1,500 hours
Yeah.
of behind the scenes footage for Superman Returns. And the documentary only represents 3 hours
Yeah.
of that footage. And I've often wanted, because I have all my tapes, I have all the tapes. And I've often thought, like, one day just as an exercise. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't officially release it anywhere, but they didn't even want us to finish it in HD, and a lot of it was shot in HD.
Right.
So I
Right.
could go back and make this definitive Superman Returns documentary. And
You
I've
never know. I mean, if you did that, you never know. HBO Max might go, all right, we'll
right,
take it.
that's what I was
I
thinking.
mean, that's the thing is you just never know. I mean, the thinking at the studio seems to change every few years, right? There's a regime change and a whole new group of people, and if you put that together and you could get all the clearances from the talent and stuff, it's like you never know.
Right. You never know. I mean, theoretically, the clearances they already signed all that stuff. The
Yeah.
studio has it all. But
Right.
it's like, for instance, I interviewed Guy Dias, the production designer, and I took him on to every single set and interviewed him about every single set. Well,
Oh,
that
man,
stuff
that's
was
cool.
it never showed up in the documentary. A little of it did, but I wanted
Yeah.
to do a piece that was just on the production design of Superman Returns. Well,
Yeah.
that alone could be an hour long,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you could do. It's just a question of would anybody think it was worth anything? I mean,
Right.
I could do it on my own and release it on YouTube or something, even though
Right,
probably
exactly.
get a copyright strike against it or something. But there's a lot of that, and
Yeah. Yeah.
what I find it's frustrating about physical media, the special features, a lot of those special features are just languishing away. The studios
no.
don't
Yeah.
they don't even know where the special features are a lot of the
Well,
time.
and it's more than that even. They don't even know what they've got.
Right.
Right? Like, I mean, because guys like you shot hundreds of hours worth of stuff, it's on tape, put it in a box, put it in a vault, and they don't even know it's there. Because
Right.
again, you get like, people get fired, they retire, like there's a regime change, and all of a sudden they've got a box, they don't know what's in there.
Oh, I mean, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of hours of interviews
Yeah.
no one's ever seen. I
Some
mean,
of the best stuff still hasn't been seen.
no, I mean, I talk about how I interviewed Christopher Lee for 5 hours.
Right.
Well, on the fellowship disc, how much of that interview is on there? 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's
But
exactly right.
and you'd think that somebody would want to do something with that. But they won't even put the appendices aren't even on the 4K releases of Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Because they just figure, well, everyone already has them.
This is a good time to show. So this came out right recently, just
Yep.
a few weeks ago, which is a great in terms of picture and sound. This is a reference quality disc. It's gorgeous,
Yeah.
and there's a substantial amount of extras on here compared to most discs these days. Like there's a good amount of material on
Mhm.
here, but this is a film that I would think is a candidate for a really, really elaborate feature length documentary. I mean, if there's any film that I want a really elaborate making of documentary on, it's Dune. And it's like, and it's not there. And then the other thing, this I just picked up and I haven't watched it yet.
Is that the
The
3D version?
Yeah, the Blu-ray 3D version of Dune. And unfortunately, this does not have the IMAX aspect ratio, but
Right.
it's 3D. So it's like that's a title where, when Dune Part 2 comes out, or after Dune Part 2 comes out, like that's a title that's ripe for. I want to see a super deluxe Dune box set that's got both parts, maybe an extended cut, audio commentary, feature length making of documentary. Like I would eat that up. I think a lot of people would.
Well, the problem is, it's just the studios, when we used to get paid to make these elaborate special features, we were paid usually from the marketing departments.
Right.
That's where the money came from. Oh. And
this is my pal Charlie. Charlie, hey, what's going on, man?
but they just don't have the money. There's nowhere, unfortunately, where money is where, we're talking budgets of substantially north of $1 million.
Right.
And when you're, on Superman Returns or Narnia, we were in country for 14 months on Narnia, and they had to pay for our budgets had to include housing and cars and telephones and all kinds of things. And
that's the thing is like there's all this ready-made content, and then see that's why I'm hopeful that at some point maybe somebody will realize that, hey, HBO Max or Disney Plus, that's the perfect venue for that, right? That's the perfect venue for that, but it takes someone with imagination. It takes someone willing to spend the money.
I've been bummed out that Marvel never did that. Yeah. Like, why doesn't Marvel have an in-house team that is making? I mean, there should be hour-long documentaries or 2-hour-long documentaries on the making of each of these movies.
Absolutely, and that could be a series in itself, and you could be a streaming series. You could put it out in a box set. People would buy it, absolutely. And something that's done, it's something that's done not by. It's not that we sometimes talk about like the EPK team and go, it's just kind of the usual EPK featurette. What we mean by that, it's not that those are bad, but what we mean by that is what we want is content that is geared toward the real serious fan, not just the casual, not just promotional stuff.
Right.
We want content that is really about, like, if you're a diehard Marvel fan, what kind of questions do you have? What would you like to see? To really get in kind of the weeds. And that's the kind of stuff that, the casual fan is not going to have any interest in, or going to have very little interest in. And frankly, studio executives are going to have no interest in that kind of content because they're not fans of this stuff.
No, I mean, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it would have been really interesting to have an ongoing series and how these movies were developed, what the thought process was behind the choices they've made, and all the design work and everything that's done. And there's a little of that, but I mean, real deep dives. Like every time I see an interview with Kevin Feige, it's all very surfacey. Like no one's asking him, I think what would be real interesting questions about the whole approach. I mean, it's the most successful franchise in history. Right. And I mean, they just put out that big coffee table book, the first 10 years of Marvel or whatever. Right. And it's okay. It's pretty good. But it's a great artifact to have.
There seems to be a reluctance at Disney to let anyone peek inside the sausage making process.
Yeah, which is so weird because
an example of that is you look at the start when the those great books that came out, the making of Star Wars, the Rinsler books, the making of Empire, the making of Jedi, right? He was gonna continue doing.
He wrote that book.
Yeah, right. For what is it?
For Force Awakens.
Force Awakens, right? And they canned it. And I think it's because there is a kind of a reluctance institutionally at Disney to kind of let people peek inside the machine.
Yeah, I mean, and which is so interesting because it didn't used to be that way. Right. When I was working for Curdy Pellerin spent the 90s doing those elaborate Laserdisc box sets, the big Disney box sets. And like when I was able to go back and do my Tron documentary that's on that Blu-ray for the 20th anniversary of Tron back in 2002, I had no oversight. And they're like, whatever you need, I could go into the archives. I could, whatever you want to put in that, Rob, you can put it in. And I got to interview so many great people. And Disney, at first they said, well, just do like 15 minutes. And I gave them an 88-minute feature-length documentary. And they're like, well, this is great.
All right.
It got nominated when the DVD exclusive awards happened. It was nominated for documentary of the year.
And I think that's kind of when we think of the golden age of discs, right? The DVD era and the first part of the Blu-ray era. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about like these really elaborate, like anything went in terms of these documentaries. You could deep dive and get into the weeds on this stuff, and that was not for the casual fan. That was for the diehard fan.
Well, it's
That
like
was for
all
the
of
real serious
Charlie's.
fan.
One of my favorite things. I'm not a big fan of Prometheus, but I certainly love Charlie's documentary on the making of Prometheus.
Yeah,
You know, it's
yeah,
like 4.5
absolutely.
hours long, and it's one of the
Yeah.
most fascinating accounts. And then, of course, everything Charlie did for Blade Runner.
Oh yeah, and
I
the
mean,
Alien films
the Alien
and
films and his
yeah,
big sets. Well, there's a lot of people firing in
questions.
some questions for you. I figure why not do them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Checkers, Josh Allen, Checkers the inventor says, Rob, I told you my Bills had it in the bag. Never doubt Josh Allen. Nice talking to you yesterday. That was the Bills won and the Patriots lost.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
One wonders when the Belichick era is going to come to an end. I don't know.
I don't know. Darth Plagueis says we still read books. I think movies will exist in 100 years too. Oh, I do too. I think movies aren't going to go anywhere.
No, absolutely.
Narratives aren't going to go anywhere. But I think that I think that younger people now, they're growing up watching YouTube, and then there's all
Yeah,
TikTok, and there's video games, and there's just that they don't. I mean, back movies were it. Going out of
right,
the house, that
right.
art form. Now there's just so many other places where you can get entertainment.
Yeah,
And
well, and for a lot of us in the '80s, when we had video games, but they were very primitive video games.
hmm
The movie going to the movies in the '80s was like going to an amusement park and riding a roller coaster.
Right.
That's really what the way I think of it. Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Superman, and it was like riding a roller coaster.
Yeah, and there was all kinds of great movies. And
Yeah,
nowadays, what I find really interesting is on the studios are not making they're making big franchise properties like, hey, I love my Marvel Cinematic Universe,
right.
but the studios they're not gonna be taking swings on original IP
Yeah.
anymore. And
Well, see, what's really interesting about that is that for a long time there was a kind of a dumbing down of filmmaking in Hollywood because it had to appeal to an international audience, right? Because that's where the money was made, and you don't want a lot of thoughtful talking and stuff like that because it doesn't translate as well in some markets. That's at least that's the belief. I think that's a little bit insulting of your audience, but okay, I can see that. But the thing of it is now there are a lot of these big blockbusters that are being made specifically with the thought that they'll do well in China, and these things aren't doing well in China.
right.
And so I
Or they're
wonder if
not in
there'll be
China at all. Like
right,
Spider-Man has the last Marvel movies haven't been in China.
right, exactly. And I wonder if there won't be, and streaming will be a part of that. I wonder if there won't be at least a little bit of rethinking of look, that strategy worked for a while, but it's not working anymore. What comes next? How do we adjust? And hopefully there'll be an adjustment, and maybe that means the movies will be a little more intelligent and a little less.
Well, and also the 2 hour or now 2.5 or 3 hour format of movies has given way to streaming shows,
Right,
whether it's Succession or The Queen's Gambit or
right.
take your pick. We're getting a lot of that adult, interesting content is being made for streaming, and we're getting
Yeah.
even stuff like Squid Game. I
Well, and
mean,
look at you mentioned Marvel earlier and the kind of the brilliance of what they're doing. Like they're still making the big explosion movies, but now they're interconnecting them with these more thoughtful streaming series that are less about explosions and they're more about character and stuff, right? Like the Hawkeye series and Loki. It's like those are really, really interesting things, and you couldn't get away with doing that in a film.
no,
But you can add interconnectivity and you can expand your characters and add a little bit of history, and it's like I think that's fascinating
yeah, no,
that you can build the universe, a storytelling universe where you can have both approaches and they complement each other.
yes, it's amazing. Um, Neil Horn says, "Hail, Mr. Burnett. I really enjoy your videos. Well, thank you, especially fully articulated and your insider tales of movie making. Keep up the great work." Well, Neil, thank you, and
Excellent.
we will. This show right now is one of those very things. Tom Jr. Jackson says, "Rob, to live and die in L.A. If Kino Lorber were smart, they'd release it in 4K." This is, of course, an ongoing joke on this channel. We talk about it. I can't wait. One of my most eagerly. I mean, I never thought in 1 year I'm going to get to live and die in LA on 4K. I'm going to get Star Trek: The Motion Picture in 4K, the director's edition.
Yep.
I mean, we'll get presumably The Hitcher this year in 4K. Which
Yeah, not only that, and the other Sergio Leone films, and I'm actually hoping that encourages Paramount to put Once Upon a Time in the West out in 4K.
yeah,
I mean, having that all. I mean, it's amazing. We really are kind of spoiled right now, and it's like I feel very surprised at the kind of things that are coming out in 4K, and then very surprised at the kind of things that should be out in 4K that aren't.
Right.
But it's like, look, man, I'll take everything we can get.
Well, also what's really interesting too is I feel like in my old age, I'll have the ultimate home theater system, and I'll have just this great array of classic films to watch,
Right.
and I'll spend my twilight years trying to work my way through my own movie collection.
That's right.
I
That's
mean,
right. And when the singularity apocalypse happens and the electrical grid goes down and all that stuff, as long as you've got solar panels on your roof, you can still watch those discs in your home theater.
I can't wait, and
While everybody else is out in the back clubbing each other over the head with, brooms and stuff.
yeah, I'll have my locked basement that you can't get into, where I've got venting and
It'll be like the bookworm episode of the Twilight Zone, though. Your 4K player will break, your last one will break, and then you're stuck.
Why, Helen? Why do you do these things? Darth Plagueis says, oh, this is a good question. Darth Plagueis says, Rob and Bill, will we see Heat and Aliens on 4K soon? Not just for the picture, but think how awesome an Atmos track could sound for these movies. My God, can you imagine an Atmos track on either one of those films?
Yeah, well, Heat you can get Heat right now 4K streaming, and so it was supposed to come out at the end of last year.
Yeah,
but for whatever reason, there were various delays. The last I heard when I checked with Disney is they're still working on it, but they're trying to. I don't know what the delay is, but it was something technical they're trying to sort out or whatever. So hopefully, Heat is still coming to 4K at some point, maybe this year. Who knows? I'll have to circle back on that. Aliens, I would be stunned if we don't get Aliens. I would be stunned if we don't get Aliens. Maybe even next year. I mean, I think once the Avatar push.
Yeah, well, then there's the new TV series too, Noah
Right.
Hawley's
The
Aliens
Noah Hawley
series.
series. Yeah, I've got to believe that the rest of the Alien films will. I mean, that's so obvious to put all those out in 4K. And I have to believe that once Cameron's attention is not completely on Avatar, I have to believe he's going to circle back and go, okay, let's get all of my films out in 4K properly.
Yeah, I mean, the other Lightstorm titles like Strange Days and Solaris,
Yeah.
Soderbergh Solaris,
Yeah.
have only been released in Europe. Like, I have those discs. I've got the
Me too.
Blu-rays of Strange Days and Solaris, and
Yeah.
the Solaris disc looks fantastic.
It does.
And True Lies, I have a Spanish bootleg of that they took off of cable or something, but
Yeah.
it's all right.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, those movies, it's so strange to me that those Lightstorm titles are not available domestically in Blu-ray
Yeah.
or in
Well,
4K.
Then you look at Terminator 2, the Studio Canal release, which is just, I mean, again, to explain what happened there is I'm told that the original 4K scan is gorgeous, but what happened is in order to post convert for 3D, they obviously scrubbed it with noise reduction, and then they post converted that, and that's the master that they then use for the 4K. And it's like, oh my God. And even to the point where when you put the 4K disc in, the original 4K release, I don't know if it's still true on the reissue 4K disc, but when you put that 4K disc in, the first message that popped up was something about this 3D presentation. And it's like, why would you do that?
Oh, yeah. And again, because there's people that just don't know.
Right. That's exactly right.
I hear more and more. That's why there's been so many mistakes on various releases.
Yeah.
What happened with Road Warrior? I mean,
somebody just didn't know and thought that and they also, Warner Brothers, their QC operation they've kind of farmed it out. Right. And they didn't have anybody left in house who would recognize an error like that. Like George would have caught that if he'd have been there.
Oh yeah.
And I think now that they'll be more on top of that stuff. And
and they have George Miller, the director of those movies, is making Furiosa, the Furiosa sequel or prequel right now. And you'd think that they would just, okay, we've got your new masters of your new movies. Can you take a look?
Take a look at this real quick? And right. I mean, those are obvious things to do. But see, the people who knew that at the studios, a lot of them are gone now. A lot of them retired. A lot of them were, or were downsized in the rounds of layoffs and stuff. And so it's like that. This is the problem when you have a brain drain like that. The people that are there are well-meaning, but they don't have that institutional knowledge. They don't understand the films. They're not diehard fans. Because that's the interesting thing is during the golden age of DVD, these guys that were studio executives, a lot of them were diehard fans of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they knew, oh, if we did this, I bet people will buy it.
No, it's frustrating. I mean,
Yeah.
luckily it's fallen to the boutique companies, but the boutique companies don't have the kind of money to do the kind of special editions.
Right.
I mean, unless you like Ballyhoo Films or something, he does. Daniel Griffiths does great work and puts
Yeah.
his all into it.
But even then, those guys only get so much access, right? The
Right.
studios only give them so much access, and so it's I mean, it's thank God that some of that great stuff is coming out. I mean, but it's like you just wish that like if there was a little bit more imagination at the studios, like Disney right now ought to be licensing out. Like if there's stuff that they don't want to do, at least but yet they're continuing to remaster this stuff. License some of that out. License it out to Criterion or Shot Factory or Kino or somebody, so that we can get Tombstone and Open Range and
Blood in, blood out. I
right.
want that. That's only
Yeah,
on
that's
DVD.
exactly right.
It's never come to HD.
I'm hoping that the Miramax deal with Paramount. I'm hoping that Paramount starts to mine that Miramax 4K catalog. Because think of Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill and The English Patient, and there's all these really interesting films that deserve a release.
I mean, how great would it be to get a 4K copy of The English Patient?
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, no. It's a
you and I
beautiful
are
film, right?
lovers of that movie.
Oh, yeah,
And,
absolutely. In The Crow and stuff like that, right?
oh yeah, I'd love to get a 4K disc of The Crow.
Yeah.
Love to get it. Both, this is interesting, both Hitchhiker 42 and 200 Watt Studio sent in super chats. They both asked any word on Babylon 5 on HD. Will it be released with the new show that's coming out, or the HBO masters that are in HD? Will those come out on disc?
My guess would be eventually. If they're doing a new series, if they are going to reboot the new series, then I would be willing to bet at that point that's when you'll see a disc release.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that makes most sense. I mean, it's like, why? Because why not, right? If there's an appetite for it, why wouldn't they? It's interesting because kind of on a semi-related note, I just got this, and I have got to review this at some point here in the next couple of weeks. But Viavision in Australia put out the Farscape, and this is Farscape the complete series, and it's got the Peacekeeper Wars in here, and
Yep.
it's got all of that content that was on those discs, plus it's Peacekeeper Wars, and this is the thing, it's region, I don't think it's region locked, so I think there were European Blu-ray sets that had Peacekeeper Wars, but they were region B only. This
Right.
is all region. And so I think this is the first place you can get Peacekeeper Wars with the rest of the series in all region release. So
Yeah,
it's like, I mean, and I wouldn't have necessarily thought that would happen. So it's like, it seems like there are opportunities to do this. And if somebody figures out there's an audience, that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I just want more. I want more, Bill. I want more. Give me everything.
I want it all.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing.
I should show you a couple other things I've got here recently.
Oh yeah,
This
please.
this is from Classic Flicks, the Abbott and Costello show, season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Furmanek in the 3D Film Archive did a lot of the restoration work of it. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. Like mastered from the original nitrate negatives. It's like, and they also are doing the original R Gang shorts. They're releasing them in volumes every few months, and they are just, the restorations are just gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And then the one other thing I picked up that I've got here in terms of show and tell is after obviously Denis Villeneuve's Dune came out, and obviously Arrival and Sicario are already out on disc. But I wanted to go back and pick up some of his older films to kind of dive in.
Yeah, where'd you get that? Is that
I got Incendies. This is a Sony release of Incendies, and Prisoners, which has already been out.
Yep.
And then Enemy, and these are mainstream releases. But then I also picked up the BFI region, or our region B version of Polytechnic,
which I've never seen.
I haven't either. But it's like I'm so fascinated. Look, Villeneuve did Arrival, and he did Sicario, Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, and now Dune. I'm interested in seeing everything that guy makes.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and that's another thing, is being able to get a director's entire library. Like I love one of my favorite box sets is the Criterion Bergman box set.
Yeah.
You know, it's,
and I love. I'm also very fond of the AK-100, the Akira Kurosawa box set that they did. I would so love, that was DVD. I would so love to see like a
Dude,
like a Blu-ray combo 4K reissue of that at some point.
what I would give for that.
Yeah.
Georgie sends in a super chat and says, I know it's a matter of taste, but I don't like the artworks of the Godfather 4K sets. It deserves better. So what Georgie's talking about, like, here's the standard issue of the Godfather trilogy, and I would tend to agree. I mean, it's got a blooming rose on it. I mean, it's not so great. Now, I really like this. This is the poster art that they've created for the Godfather. I guess it's the one sheet that's going to be in theaters, because they are giving it a re-release in theaters. And then here is the 4K, the deluxe set, which I love. I mean, I think the artwork here for Godfather 1, 2, and 3 is really cool. These art prints. Be cool to take that and actually get those framed with a nice matting around them or something. I mean, it's really, really good.
That's a common complaint, is the cover artwork is terrible, and it is by and large. Cover artwork today is terrible because it's done by marketing people, and I think a lot of times, depending on the film, like the actors have sign off on various imagery and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. So I think it's the reason we get this kind of crappy artwork is complicated, and again, it's an afterthought. But my attitude about that is, look, that's what Photoshop's for. Like, if you want a really great thing, there's imagery online, there's poster imagery online. You can scan it.
People have made their own box imagery
it.
that you can download.
Right. There's an army of like just custom cover art people out there that are doing the Lord's work. They're doing beautiful work.
Yeah.
It's like, my thing is, at least we're getting these films on disc.
Right.
You know what I mean, this is kind of what I mean when we talk about we're on the tail of this format of physical media. It's like we're not getting, like in 20 years ago, that the artwork would have been always amazing. Like, it would have been, somebody would really have been thinking about this. They'd be using the poster artwork, and they'd be commissioning new artwork, kind of like what Scream Factory does, right? Shot Factory.
Yeah.
I'm just glad we're getting these things on disc at this point, because there are going to be very, very beloved titles that just won't ever make it out on disc or won't make it to 4K, and that's heartbreaking, but that's just what it is, man.
Speaking of that, Tom Jr. Jackson says, is Johnny Dangerously and Only the Lonely coming to Blu-ray?
Oh,
There's some comedies that I like. Johnny Dangerously.
yeah. What studio are those? Do you
I'm
remember?
not sure. What is Johnny? You'd think because Michael Keaton being in the new Batman movie, maybe there's going to be more that might get released. And Only the Lonely's John Candy, I think, right?
Possible. I mean, those are certainly. I mean, look, never say never. I mean, there's a lot of companies like Kino and and obviously Warner Archive and stuff. You never know. It's possible.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
look, we're getting The Hitcher in 4K. Anything is possible at this point.
It's
if
amazing.
they can find the negatives, like I'd love to see like The Last Duel in on Blu-ray, and I'd love to see, or The Last Chase. I would just say
The Lee Majors movie.
The Lee Majors movie. Yeah, I'd love to see Hangar 18, man. I mean,
That's a Sun Classic picture. Do you know that was directed by one of the big directors on Star Trek?
was it really?
Yeah. Who did the Star
I didn't
Trek
know that.
series. Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, it's like anything's possible at this point, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be funny because Sun Classic Pictures that made like the Outer Space Connection and the Lincoln Conspiracy and In Search of Historic Jesus
Yeah.
and the Mysterious Monsters, they actually made Hangar 18.
Nice.
So it'd be fun to get that.
Nice.
Stubble McShave says, the best things in the Star Wars prequels are the special features documentaries. Why are those not put up on Disney Plus? I know that there's some comments about George being independent outside the studio system. Is that the reason they're not on Disney Plus? I would say probably because they're in standard definition.
It's possible, and it's interesting that the new version of what's the great Kevin Burns the Star Wars documentary.
Oh, The Empire Dreams.
The Empire Dreams. Yeah, it's interesting that they went back and re-edited that too, right? Because the original version had the original 79 version or the 77 version of the crawl. They went back and replaced it with the new one. Like, so it's, that's that sort of Disney weirdness.
Yeah, it's I don't know why they do. And they might have to do that because, if they put the original 77 version of the crawl, then they have to pay Marcia Lucas.
It's absolutely possible. And look, I mean, Star Wars is a perfect example of, if you want all the content that's available for those movies, the behind the scenes content, then you have to keep literally every version you've ever had.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't all carry over to the new set. Some of the Blu-ray content carried over to the new set, but not all of it. Some of the DVD content didn't carry over. The Laserdisc content sure didn't carry over. that's just the way it is. There will never be an official Ultimate box set. I don't think your official Ultimate box set is get a box, take every version you own, put it in a box. There's your box set.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. It sucks, but I think that's why. It's simply because they're just not in. My Tron documentary, my 88-minute documentary on the making of Tron, is not on.
Yeah,
not on Disney Plus, and they mastered it for Blu-ray.
And that's a film, by the way, that could get a beautiful 4K remaster.
Yep, I could see that happening.
I mean, it was all done. I mean, there's some computer stuff there clearly, but there's film and that was shot, and I mean, they could certainly do it, and who knows?
I would love to see Criterion. Georgie sends in another super chat and said, "I'd love to see Criterion release RoboCop in 4K with their old artwork from the Laserdisc and DVD." Well, they're not going to do that because Arrow is putting out RoboCop in 4K.
Right.
But it seems to me, I mean, it's almost exactly the same as the box set. I mean, I'm going to get that 4K disc and just replace the movie disc.
Right. Hey man, at least we're getting it in 4K. I mean, and then the thing of it is now that there's a chance that Criterion circles back to it in 3 or 4 years. Right now that we know that there's a 4K master, it's not outside the realm of possibility. Criterion is now at least doing 4K, so
Yeah, and their 4K stuff. It's funny because they always talk about how it was mastered in 4K. They had to have had those 4K masters just sitting around.
Yeah.
And now we're going to get those things.
Yeah. Some of them at least.
Yeah, I mean their Mulholland Drive disc was stunning.
Right.
And then, but I'm curious, like I never got I ordered their Citizen Kane from Barnes and Noble, and they pulled it. They didn't send it because of the mistake, but I did get the European box set of Citizen, the 4K, which is absolutely a beautiful box set. But I'm wondering, where did this transfer come from?
Well, I'm sure.
This is the actual Warner Brothers. Yeah, this is a Warner Brothers release.
Yeah. I'm sure it's it's exactly. It went to Criterion from Warner Brothers, and so I have that Criterion disc, and it's great. I mean, the Blu-ray obviously needs to be replaced.
Yeah,
but it's the 4K presentation is gorgeous.
No, absolutely, and I have one of these. I'm going to give away on the 800th episode of Robservations.
When is that due to fall?
Next month. If I keep doing, I've
800 episodes, man.
I know, right?
You're an Iron Man. You're a YouTube Iron Man.
It's crazy. Terrier from Norway says, "Thanks for the tip, Bill. Patton is indeed on Disney Plus in Europe in 4K. That movie is a masterpiece, and I need to see it again." George C. Scott Power.
And when you think of how bad that Blu-ray was, that was just scrubbed with digital noise reduction, and all the grain was gone, and everybody looks like a wax figure, and now I'd love to see that in 4K.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
4K.
200 Watt Studio says, "Can we talk about good films on 4K and not To Live and Die in LA? Will we get 2010 Metropolis or Outland in 4K? Are you trying to tell me, 200 Watt Studio, that you think Outland is a better movie than To Live and Die in LA? I bet. I like Outland, but come on, man. That movie has
Here's my question: Was the Metropolis? I mean, obviously, look, it's a restoration from a variety of sources, so I don't know how much resolution is there. But I mean, was that last restoration done in 4K?
I don't know.
I don't either. It might have been. It was a while ago. It might have been 2K. I don't know if there's 4K of information in those negatives in the various sources, but hey, man, I'd love to see that. 2010. I'd love to have 2010 on.
Me too.
4K. I love that film.
I love 2010. As a matter of fact, though, I would love to remake 2010 before Care Delay dies, because you could remake it and make it about the Soviets, the Americans and the Russians trying to beat the Chinese, like the book is. Just go adapt the book, and then you could do 2061 and 3001, the Final Odyssey. Yeah,
somebody at some point is going to come back and go, we should really because I don't see anybody remaking that first film, but
no,
you could definitely adapt those remaining novels and do new adaptation. Maybe even do them as a series, like
do it as I think that would be great, because 2010, there's so much in that book that wasn't in the film.
Yeah.
And it's so the international incident aspects of that movie are so dated now.
Yeah. It is. But I still love what's the name of the actor that played the Russian Have you checked Discovery's orbit
Oh
yet
yeah,
lately?
what do you mean? The
So good.
orbit. Oh,
Like
now I can't.
Discovery's orbit lately?
It's so good. And we are getting a 27-inch model kit of the Pan Am Clipper, and we're getting a 1/48 scale model of the Aries 1B. I mean, that's going to be like this big.
I can't. It's like what kills me about it. I mean, I'm looking at your shelf behind you, and obviously I've got like a ton of books and stuff back here. I don't have room for all of these damn things. But I mean, I'm like literally right behind my MacBook here that I'm using to record this. I've got all my Space 1999, like
Yep.
1612 Product Enterprise 1612, Eagle transporters and stuff, and I just can't.
Are you going to buy?
I'll never forget what I can't remember what year that was. That the Product Enterprise ones first came out, those Eagles. But that year, I'll never forget it. I was at Comic-Con. We were walking the show floor, and like there they were, these 12-inch die-cast Eagle transporters, and I just like lost my marbles and bought like all of them.
Now,
Did you see everywhere I went for the rest of the show? People were like, "Oh my God, those are the Eagles!" And they went and bought a bunch too.
Well, I always have this picture. Speaking of Eagles, here's me with my 1612 and Product Enterprises Space 1999 shelf. But let me ask you this: did you see what 1612 just put up for pre-order?
Are you talking about the 1-to-1 helmet, space helmet?
Yep. And you can get John Koenig, Helena Russell, Alan Carter.
I mean, come on, you've got to get Alan Carter.
That's what I'm going to get.
You've got to get Alan Carter.
Alan
Carter's the guy who crashed all those Eagles, man. You got to get that one. By the way, while we're talking Space 1999, that's a good opportunity we were talking about books earlier,
dude.
The Moonbase Alpha, because you remember the original Moonbase Alpha manual was a Starlog thing, wasn't it?
Yep, and I have it.
I have mine. Like Starlog, and this is the updated version, and it's this gorgeous like hardcover like book that with all of this amazing. The Jerry Anderson store, like it's got all this amazing behind the scenes stuff and cutaways, and it's just,
come on,
oh my God, it's just that's absolutely geek out fodder. I got to put it right up back.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
and they're putting out so many great things. I just got the UFO, the first comic compilation, and our UFO. I did send in our UFO. They have it.
By the way, do people know what that? Have you ever said what that is? That we worked on a pitch?
No, so for those of you who don't know, Jerry Anderson's first live action series UFO that was first 69 to 71, Bill and I did work on a pitch for a modern update of that series, but it was in continuity with the original series. Ours took place in 2030 and the original UFO took place in it took place throughout the 70s, but the main gist of the show was set in 1980, and we pick up years and years later, but it's within the same continuity of the original show.
Right, so it wouldn't be a reboot; it would be kind of a continuation.
Yeah,
but no, that was fun. Well, hey, who knows?
Hey, well, if it gets published, it could get published in the second volume of the UFO comic annual, so that'd be
great.
that could be cool. We shall see. I mean, let's see. We've got Justin Toner. Our own Justin Toner says, excited for Dog Soldiers in 4K from Second Sight. Do you think they will get the Unearthed director's cut of Romero's Martin for their 4K release? For those of you who don't know, they found, I guess, a 3-hour black and white, it was a director's or work print of Martin, George Romero's Martin. Now, Second Sight announced that they were going to be putting Martin out about the same time they announced Dawn of the Dead, which came out last year.
Right.
And it hasn't come out yet, but now I hope they do.
I would imagine, it's because Richard Rubenstein, who's the guy who licenses all that stuff, he's got the rights to it. He seems to be being more generous with all of that content now, and so if they got the rights, they would clearly have access to all that material. So yeah, that's very possible, I would think.
Georgie sends in another super chat. You're being very generous today, Georgie. Thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. A decade ago, he says, there was a script on the blacklist about a story behind The Godfather. Does that have something to do with the new Paramount Plus TV series, The Offer? I can't wait. It might. I don't know if the same writers are involved, but as people might not know, there is a multi-part series about the making of The Godfather. It's not a documentary series. It's actually it's a biopic, or what would we call it? A docudrama about the making of The Godfather, and it's called The Offer. It's on Paramount Plus. and they've kind of coordinated it with. It's great, the film's 50th anniversary, which is obviously this year,
Yeah.
and that's why we're getting the new 4K release. It's all kind of synergistically working. They like to do that when they can market
I may
things.
I may have to pick up Paramount Plus. I don't have it. I don't have Paramount Plus right now, but I may have to go pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's Paramount. It's not bad. I kind of like.
Is it?
Although I'm blocked by their official Twitter feed. I was.
I was going to ask, after watching your rant the other day, I was going to ask if you ever got a response to your application for the
No,
the
I didn't.
Master of Star Trek position.
I never actually filled out. I started to, but then I was looking at the actual qualifications. You know, they want a corporate suit. They want somebody that
Of
has
course.
brand management. I don't have
Right.
any of those qualifications.
Right. It'll end up being probably some guy who like worked at Nabisco or something.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing. I mean, if you want me to tell you how Star Trek has been marketed in every platform over the last 50 years, I could probably, whether everything from action figures to breakfast cereal to Heineken beer.
I was laughing so hard watching you during that thing because as ridiculous as it would be if they actually circled back to you on that. Like, there's nobody who knows the product line in the franchise better than you, man. All the product lines, the books, the comic books, the action figures, all of that shit.
Yeah, I mean,
nobody knows that more better than you do.
No, and it would be funny.
It would be very funny.
Jesus Gutierrez says, "Are we excited for the making of Godfather series, The Offer?" I am. I want to see that. I'll watch it.
Yeah, I didn't even know about it, so yeah, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so it's the cast is great, and it's going to be fun to see. I forget who's the person that's playing Robert Evans. I forget who's playing Robert Evans, but it should be pretty fun. All the battles of them not wanting to hire Al Pacino and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of inside baseball there that could be pretty interesting, wouldn't it?
Darth Plagueis wants to know, where can I buy those 2001, 2010 models? And the best movie never made is Kubrick's Napoleon. I think you might be right about that. I have, of course, the giant Taschen book on the unmade Napoleon.
Yeah, I do too. Back here behind me.
It's incredible. The multi books that they have in the big, huge book. I mean, I don't know how much.
Well, they've got the super deluxe one, and then they've also got right here. They've got the wide release version.
Yeah,
it's still about 100 pounds. It feels like.
Yeah, no, I've got the super deluxe version.
Yeah, and you've got the super deluxe one. That's a box of it's a giant book of several books, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. No, I would be amazing to see. The cool thing is that at least the screenplay is out there. Like a draft of the screenplay is out there, I think.
Well, it's in that you can get it. It's part of that book series.
It's part of the book, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But so Darth Plagueis wants to know, the place that I buy a lot of my model kits is Cult TV Man. CULT-TV-man.com. They have a hobby shop, and I cannot recommend them highly enough.
Are those model kits out yet? There's Mobius, right?
Yeah, they're Mobius. They're not out yet. I think they come out in March.
Nice.
And I think the Ares 1B is like $300, and the I mean, to have 2001 models that are like this big, I hope they do.
Those are basically studio scale, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty much. And the Ares, the original Ares 1Bs, I think at the Academy Museum. Yeah. Here in town. But I mean, to have an Ares, I mean, I want to hang that, the Ares 1B and light up the interior, and they'll have all that stuff.
Haywood Floyd and the pilots and all the other little, passengers and all. Yeah,
it'd be that. And then of course it's funny because the Pan Am Clipper model does not come with the Pan Am decals, so some third party will make them because they don't have the rights. Yeah,
and I guarantee there'll be all kinds of customized like airline versions too.
Right? That would be the best. There's somebody put somebody made I couldn't find it, but the Eagle. By the way, I'll be able to take that Eagle off your hands shortly.
It's all yours, my friend. What he's talking about is I had a 23-inch Eagle that used to occupy one of these shelves back here, but I was realizing like I got no place to put my books, man. So I had to I basically decided I've got to like not have that, and then I can have all the 12-inch ones. I've literally got like 13 12-inch Eagles behind the thing here.
Well, what's funny is I've got the 23-inch. You can see in this picture on top. I've got the 23-inch Product Enterprises Rescue Eagle, but I had oh, look at that! Those are so great. They're bigger than the Eagle Moss
Oh, they're
Eagles,
so beautiful. They're
and they're
so
better.
beautiful.
They're
Black
better
cast,
than the Eagle Moss.
machined aluminum engine bells.
Oh yeah,
Oh my God, that's candy right there. That's just candy. And I am so thrilled to say that they finally made the Hawk
dude, I have two of
after
them.
yeah, were they two of them? Yeah, in both paint schemes here. And here's the Hawk that goes with it in the same scale.
Yep.
Oh, look at that! Look at that. As a kid, do you know how many model kits of this I built and broke of this and the Eagle, like playing with them like toys as a kid? Because I just like,
Oh, I
uh,
love them.
I'm so
Well,
obsessed with those Space 1999
they're
shows.
coming out because I have the model kits of the 23-inch Eagles as well, the Lab Eagle and the.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're
The round two kits, aren't
yeah,
they?
yeah, and
Yeah.
then the round 2 Hawk, which is like this
Oh.
big, comes out next
And see,
month.
again, I don't have the room for any of that, man. I wish I did.
You're ceiling, dude. You're ceiling.
Yeah. Not like our friend Jeff Bond, who's literally got like an entire garage or basement full of nothing but giant custom studio scale models that he's built.
It's amazing. He's got the model of the Valley Forge from Silent Running.
Dude, he built the Cygnus from the black hole, and it's like 4 feet long.
And you know what he did? How he did that? There's a guy on Shapeways that sells all the parts. Like it's like a part works. You can buy them from him, and then that's what Jeff made.
God.
You know, right now, this is we're totally off topic, but right now
Yes, we are.
I've been getting a part works of the space battleship Andromeda from Star Blazers, and it's 4.5 feet long.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm
Well,
getting. I think all the parts. I'll have all the parts in May, because
nice.
now, I think it's 62 issues, and I'm up to like 57. I think.
And are you building it as you go? Are you actually building it, or are you waiting?
No. I was gonna wait and build the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I probably should, because I did buy some. You know, a lot of people don't. Like some people would repaint it all, but it's all molded in color. But I do want to weather it. I do want to do some panel lining and weather the guns and just.
Well, there's also, you talk about like Shapeways. There's all kinds of guys who make custom additional parts with additional detail for those kits and stuff. Speaking of the Eagles, I just picked up a whole set of these, which like nobody but a Space 1999 fan will recognize, but like these little Moonbase Alpha like hanger lights, right? So I've got these around my Eagles. It's just like, we live in a golden age, man. When you can buy this kind of shit, this is just ridiculous. This is genuinely ridiculous, and yet here we are.
Yeah. No, but it's great that you can get those. So Darth Plagueis, go to culttvman.com and write to Steve Iverson and tell him that I sent you there. Their shipping is fast. Their customer service is exemplary. But I warn you, like many of these other places, hide your wallet. Because when you go, and they've got custom stuff, and they've got decal sets, they got all kinds of things. Brian Doyle says, I just watched Hangar 18 last night on Blu-ray, and I talked to James Conway. James Conway is the director who worked on Next Gen, and I talked to James Conway about the fact that his audio commentary was sadly dropped for legal reasons. That's a bummer.
Oh, that's a bummer. Yeah, because that was the audio commentary was on DVD, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I hope I don't kill this one. Chris Stenfenagel, a longtime viewer of this channel, says, Rob and Bill, have either of you picked up the recently released James Bond Archives book from Toshin? It is a must for any Bond fan. I actually have the first edition of the James Bond Archives, the big version, not the No Time to Die version, because I have the first version of it. And it's great. I love it. I love those Toshin books so much. Yeah. I am a fiend for Toshin books. They're expensive, but
I really wish Toshin would do the Jodorowsky's Dune, like replicate that elaborate, art book. And
I know
that one of them just sold at auction for like a few $100,000 or something. Like they ought to, if they could replicate that, that would be, because the interesting thing about that is that so much of that content got used in his graphic novels later.
Right. Yep.
The in-call and all that kind of stuff. But it would still be amazing to just get a glimpse of what he was trying to do.
Oh, I would love it. It would be incredible. Movie and video game TV Spots sends in a super chat and says, hey, Bob. Hey, Bill. Hey, Rob. Hey, Tim Salmon's here. Hey.
Oh, hey, Tim.
How are you?
Jim, our reviews editor on the Digital Bits.
Kino, he says Kino has been and continues to kill it with 4K. Can't wait to see what else they have in store. I
Oh,
love that company.
they're going through that MGM catalog and going, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I'm just blown away that they're going to do Stanley Kubrick's The Killing and Killer's Kiss, and Paths of Glory is coming too. It's
I
like,
unbelievable.
I mean, we could legitimately in the next couple of years have like the complete Kubrick in 4K.
It would be well, you have to have someone do Fear and Desire.
Fear and Desire, right? But still, it's like, but you know, that's remarkable. That's remarkable.
Look, I really want Barry Lyndon.
Yeah, me too.
And
Yeah.
Criterion put it out. I mean, they've got that. That I would love to see Criterion put Barry Lyndon out in 4K.
Barry Lyndon 4K would be a magnificent film in 4K. It wouldn't be what some people would be expecting, like HDR and all that jazz. And that's not a film where you want to use HDR.
Right.
But it's, oh my God, that in 4K that film would be stunning. It'd be stunning.
No, I mean, I'd love to. There's things like I would love to get Wings of Desire in 4K.
Yeah, me too.
With that black and white photography. I mean, that would be amazing. And
yeah, that's another film I really love that deserves a little bit more love.
And
by the way, Far Away So Close to the sequel.
Yeah, which isn't out. I think it's out in Germany, but not.
Yeah.
It doesn't have English subtitles.
Right.
So I'm dying. I wish Criterion would put that out too. Like why not? Get it out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they finally did Wim Wenders' Until the End of the World.
Yep. The long version.
I never thought in the road movie version of that too.
Yeah, I never
thought that would come out.
Never thought it would come out. And I mean, we're getting everything.
Mm-hmm. Almost everything. We're definitely getting remarkable things. So
now, I guess I'll have to ask you: how do you see the future of home entertainment, home theater? Do you see that we are going to continue to get? Obviously, I think that discs are going to go back to being a niche thing the way laser discs were.
Yeah. I would argue they already are. I would argue discs already are the niche. But because we're kind of back to Laserdisc days where you've got a lot of third-party companies licensing and boutique labels, and they're putting out a lot of the stuff. So I think discs have a good decade left. I think given the video game systems that play 4K discs, given that there are guys like us and there are lots of other enthusiasts out there that really want this stuff. And, there are the real AV home theater guys that really want to have amazing picture and sound in their home theater. But I don't see a 4K, I don't see an 8K disc format ever happening. So I would say 10 years, maybe a decade. And then beyond that, I think what it'll look like is kind of what we've already seen, is that there are some things we love that are available on streaming that they just won't ever release on disc. And I think that's over time, you'll start to see more and more of that. And obviously we've talked about how we're in there's this kind of a glut of all these great catalog titles coming out. But at some point after an X number of years, they will have they'll kind of mined those catalogs, and then what? Right. So I don't know. I would say we've got another good decade or so.
All right. Well, that's pretty optimistic.
I think that's what George and I have talked about that too. George Feltenstein, and I think the three of us have talked about that, and I think that's kind of the consensus, is like we could see another decade or so, but after that, then you're talking about a generation of studio executives that are going to be completely raised on streaming, right? And so, 10 years from now, will the people that are making these decisions at the studios, will they be people that ever really cared about discs? I don't know.
Well, I mean, people say to me sometimes, Rob, having discs putting in a machine is so 20th century. And I'm just like, well,
yeah.
I mean, what's interesting I worked in home video when I was 13, pre-Blockbuster, when the video stores were mom and pop, or I worked for a chain in Seattle called Video Space. That was my first real job in home video. And I remember the day the first MCA video cassettes were released.
Yeah.
Jaws was one of those, and they had come out before on Laserdisc, because Laserdisc was introduced in '78, but the VHS tapes, I think it was 1980, I believe.
Yeah. And I had the same experience with music. I worked at a Music Land store in 1986, and then I worked at in Minneapolis. I worked at Cheapo Records, which was like the great,
Yeah.
indie record store in Minneapolis and stuff. And the same thing, we saw these, like, the CDs happened and vinyl kind of waned, but then it's interesting now vinyl is back. And I think, and I don't necessarily argue. I mean, in terms of digital remastering now, you can get like studio quality remastering by digital, provided you release it in 24-bit and
Mm.
lossless. But there's something about that kind of warm analog sound. But I think really what this is about, this resurgence of vinyl, is that people are kind of rediscovering the tactile experience of vinyl, right? You like these amazing artwork, and you open it up, and the liner notes and the lyrics and the, like, there is something akin to a religious experience about the tactile nature of that stuff. And that's the same thing we felt in the home video days, right? Like DVD, a box set, like having, a really elaborate CD thing, just having that beautiful packaging and the beautiful artwork and the swag and there's something about that. Or even like you talked about working at a video store, like when we used to go to Dave's Video, the laser place, we all used to do that, back in the
Yep.
late 90s and early aughts. There's something about going into a store that is just a diehard super enthusiast heaven of rows and rows and rows of video discs, movie discs, music discs. And you walk in there and you're browsing the stuff, and you start striking up a conversation with the guy next to you, and you realize, oh my God, it's Quentin Tarantino,
Right.
or it's Guillermo del Toro. Like, and you're just nerding out over this stuff. And, there's something about that experience that I really, really miss. I really like malls today. Malls today have nothing for me. I miss going into the record store and like browsing the aisles and
Oh, I mean, we still
striking up
got
a
Amoeba.
conversation.
We have Amoeba here in LA, but it's one store, and there's a
Yeah,
couple of other collectors record
yeah,
stores around. But also with vinyl, American vinyl. When I was growing up buying soundtracks or 12-inch remixes of stuff in the '80s, American vinyl was terrible.
yeah.
I would hardly ever buy any American vinyl. It was always UK vinyl, or the creme de la creme was Japanese vinyl.
Because it was heavier weight.
Yeah, heavier gauge stuff. And nowadays the vinyl, because I buy some collector sets. Like they put out a $250 version of Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Welcome to the Pleasure Dome a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
And I'm a huge Frankie fanatic, and I used to have
yeah,
every single Frankie 12-inch and every 45, everything they put out, and I had to get that box set.
yeah.
And they've done they've done things like New Order releases things, and I'll go back
Well,
and
they've
buy
done these
my.
amazing David Bowie like or like era box sets with like vinyl, and then you can get them. I bought them digitally because they also released a lot of them in 24-bit digital, so
Yeah.
it's
Oh yeah, I mean,
studio quality files.
Prince's 1999 and Sign of the
Oh yeah,
Times, and those things they're
yeah,
amazing. It's
yeah.
amazing to get that stuff, and they keep putting stuff like that out. And I'll still play CDs, but if you have a really decent sound system, a good turntable,
Yeah.
some of that stuff is amazing.
Well, and see, that's one of the reasons why, like, I left vinyl behind. I mean, I've got a box of vinyl. I've got a box of like Police and like my old Red stuff. I've still got a 7-inch, the very first single that the Police ever released, Fallout. I've got like one of the 300 I found at Cheapo Records back in the day that the hands stuffed. So I've got like one of those, and I'll never part with that. But the interesting thing is these 24-bit lossless files. If you've got a home theater that is configured, like well-designed home theater configured for Atmos and for DTS HD master audio and stuff, lossless audio, you can take those music files down there and you've got a perfect music listening space, man. Turn off the
Oh,
lights, plug a like a jump drive into your player and play these lossless files, and it's like that's
well,
just as good as it gets.
there's a website. It's expensive, but you can go and download all of these. Like they have Daft Punk's Tron Legacy score in lossless,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah,
like
there's
20.
like I think there's 3 or 4 of them. There's 7 Digital, there's Q Buzz, there's HD Tracks. Acoustic Sounds used to sell digital. They don't anymore, but now they've got like vinyl and they've got SACD and all that kind of stuff.
That's
It's out there,
incredible.
man.
Yeah, it's incredible. Brian Doyle sends in a super chat and says, "Don't knock physical media too much because in the early '90s vinyl was dead, but 2021 was the biggest selling year recently for vinyl, CDs, and cassettes, even with all the music streaming services." Well, it's true, but I think movies are a different animal because
Yeah.
music is a lot cheaper to produce on different formats. I mean, making good vinyl is not nearly as expensive as having to remaster and scan the
Well,
negative of a
and also
movie.
like the numbers are a little bit misleading too, right? Because in terms of sales, the numbers are high, but of course they didn't charge 30 and 40 bucks an album in, back in the 70s and 80s, right? Like we go to the store and buy like spend 20 bucks and come home with like 4 or 5 albums,
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's like, I mean, but look, I'm thrilled that people are rediscovering this stuff and
Yeah, because I mean, I think if you like something, you want to have a totem of it, and I think that
yeah.
it's so strange to me that because movies and music are so ubiquitous now everywhere, they're not special. I mean, I
Yeah.
used to play albums. I remember getting Pink Floyd The Wall. I got Pink Floyd The Wall for my bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
And I remember playing that album and I was like, I can't, you have to listen to all four sides. You have to get the
Right.
whole
And
story.
it
You
was an
can't just
experience, right? Because you don't want to just listen to the single. You have to, it's a whole front to back curated sound experience. You've got to
Yep.
listen to the whole album.
You got to listen to the whole
And
record, and then you're reading the liner notes, or you're following along and reading the
right.
lyrics, and it was a whole, and the records that I had, even as a kid, though, I mostly collected soundtracks, but then
Yeah.
as I got older, I got into rock and roll, and
Yeah.
I love British alternative music, like whether it's
Yeah.
Depeche Mode,
New
The Cure,
wave
and
and
New Order. You knew that
right.
was
Right.
that was the best. I mean,
The
and
Police for me was that experience. The Police and Peter Gabriel and like all of that.
yeah,
I
all
was
that
really good.
stuff. I mean, I look at my even I probably have about 1,000 CDs still, and a lot of it's all I've kept premium stuff, 12-inch remix collections, and
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
soundtracks and stuff. But I still like it. But
But
yeah,
the interesting thing is some of those old CDs sound terrible now. If you go back and listen to them now, like the kind of remastering they can do now, even in like 4416 CD quality,
yep.
so much better today than what it was back in the day.
Oh yeah, yeah. Some of those are bad, but some of that
Yeah.
stuff you can never get again. Or where
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
so. 200 Watt Studio says, seriously, how better is Outland to Live and Die in L.A.? No, Outland has two of the dumbest assassins ever put on film. They start shooting bullets in a zero gravity, non-atmosphere environment, and they die for it. They're not good at their jobs. That's what.
Yeah.
But
Well, so the interesting thing is you actually could shoot a gun, like a gun on the moon in a vacuum.
oh
You
yeah,
actually should. But the question is how stupid is it to bring a gun with you when you live in space, right? When like that gun goes off, you just like, you evacuate all the atmosphere in your module and you're dead.
and
It's
that's what
kind of
happens in
stupid.
Outland.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I could see like plastic bullets maybe that wouldn't necessarily penetrate the module or something, but like that's just dumb.
But 200 Watt Studio says, but more importantly, when will we get the individual releases from the Columbia box sets?
Boy, that's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. I would have thought that Sony would already have broken them up at this point, especially that first one, but they haven't. And I don't know. I don't know. You can get them digitally, obviously.
Yeah, but I
But,
see that as an example of Columbia put out these cool box sets. They both sold out.
yeah,
The prices on the secondary market those things are enormously expensive.
yeah. I have to believe at some point they will. I mean, it just makes sense because why wouldn't you? I mean, there's money to be made doing it, but studios are doing things that don't make sense these days in a lot of ways. So I don't really know.
I know. Terrier says 200 Watt Studios, come now. Stop asking for ending up in a dumpster with shotgun damage. Have you seen William Friedkin angry? You wouldn't like him. Well, Terrier, I'm glad to see you defending one of my favorites. Movie and video game TV spots. Again, Tim says Deaf Crocodile and Vinegar Syndrome are doing restorations of the Russian films The Sword and the Dragon, The Day the Earth Froze, a.k.a. Sampo, and Zero Grad. Really? That's cool.
Yeah,
I would love
yeah,
to
yeah.
see those Russian movies.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing the stuff that people are uncovering and finding I mean, because for a long time, I think the problem was a movie like The Hitcher, right? Nobody knew where the negative was. Nobody really like knew where the negative was. People thought it was lost, as I recall.
Yeah.
And even like Final Countdown and things like where are the elements, who owns the rights, the ownership of a lot of those films, and especially when you start talking about in the 70s and 80s, there were kind of those like real indie studios that were releasing stuff, but then the entire studio library was gobbled up by someone. So the
Yep.
rights are confusing. And then where do the negatives go? Do the negatives even exist anymore? and luckily, I think a lot of that stuff is starting to get sorted out. I think people are realizing like it's, that stuff is out there if you dig hard enough. But it requires a studio and a producer that has the foresight to go, you know what, it's going to take us a few years to figure out where the hitcher is, but let's keep that on the back burner and keep at it, because you never know, right?
Yeah, you never know. I mean, people, they'll eventually, I think, they find everything. 200 Watt Studio says, I miss Dave's laser. I met Richard Donner there as he was signing the director's cut of Superman the movie. It was a great place. I loved it too.
Yeah. That's where we all met.
Yeah.
You and me and Charlie and Paul Prishman and, oh my God, like a whole Van Ling, like a whole generation of producers and website guys, and that's where
we all went there. We all bought our laser discs, and it was an industry. You'd go in there, and it was like, talk about a star-studded place, but it was all like producers and directors.
Yeah, but you go in, you would go in there, be browsing, and then you realize you strike up a conversation just randomly as you're going through, and you'd be like Guillermo del Toro, the guy you're talking to, and and it's like nobody thought anything of that, because they were just nerds like we are, right? They're just totally into this stuff like we are, and once you have that connection, you can talk for hours. Doesn't matter who you're talking to, right? It's like you can talk for hours about this stuff. Frank Darabont was there a lot.
He was always there.
Yeah.
Georgie sends in another super chat. Once again, Georgie, thank you for your generosity. Rob and Bill, Star Trek Into Darkness, the Meteor Edition Blu-ray, limited to one piece. Do you know something about that?
Is Star Trek Into Darkness the Meteor Edition? No.
Maybe that's the actual negative. Maybe it's going to burn up in our atmosphere.
Yeah. I was willing to. I went with the 2009. I thought, okay, all right, I can kind of roll with this. I kind of like what I'm seeing here. If they take this in an interesting direction, and I really tried hard, and I did for a while. Like I did really defend Star Trek Into Darkness, but I can look back now, in retrospect, now seeing where everything went from that point on. I just can't. This is a whole other conversation, and I wanted to just derail this.
Yeah, we want
to do a Star Trek thing, but I can't. Star Trek left me behind, and that's fine. I'm thrilled people out there still love it, and I just can't hang with it anymore.
Yeah, no, I can't either. I mean,
there's too much great. I mean, look, The Expanse and For All Mankind and Foundation and even the Netflix Lost in Space reboot, I thought was pretty damn good.
I really liked it too. I thought it was a lot of fun.
There's a lot of really good sci-fi being made right now, and I'm happy to consume.
Absolutely, as am I. Well, I mean, I guess to wrap this up, what are sort of your final thoughts, like for 2022? What are some of the things? Obviously, we talked about the Cameron movies. Are there other things, other remasters that are on the horizon that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I should let me look, and I've got a list here of. Hang on, let me just finally get my computer live again. I've got a list on the bits of stuff that I know is coming.
Yeah.
So obviously Godfather. Obviously, I suspect we're gonna get Avatar 1.
Right.
Let's see, Warner Brothers. And then there is so from Kino Lorber Studio Classics, things have been announced. We've got Great Escape just came out. Some Like It Hot, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, Hard Target is coming out with corrected sound. The Apartment, Touch of Evil, Eastern Promises.
I mean, all in 4K.
Yeah, these are all 4K. In the Heat of the Night, Killer's Kiss, The Killing, Paths of Glory, In Bruges, Crybaby, Manhunter, Fistful of Dollars for a few dollars more.
I didn't know Manhunter was coming out in 4K.
Yeah, Manhunter is coming supposedly sometime this year. Then we've got, let's see here. Let me skip down to Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers has got some good stuff that we've uncovered is coming. Let's see here. Bear with me as I scroll. Fernando
Borrero sends in a tip and says, "Hi, R&B Bill. I enjoy reading your website. With Disney Plus using IMAX now to stream their movies, is it worth it for me to keep my Marvel Infinity Saga box set?"
Oh, yeah, that's a beautiful box set, Hank. Yeah, keep it. I mean, why would you if you don't care, that's fine, but I mean, I wouldn't get rid of it. That's beautiful, right? It's like I'm keeping my physical media. So getting back to so what Warner Brothers is cooking, we know for a fact that Lost Boys is coming for the anniversary in 4K.
Ooh, okay.
We've got Casablanca
in 4K
coming for the 80th anniversary. Singing in the Rain for the 70th anniversary.
Oh.
Poltergeist is coming, Spielberg's Poltergeist, because that film has a 40th anniversary this year. Gravity they were working on Gravity, but my understanding is that there's some issue with the HDR. They're trying to so Gravity has been kind of delayed indefinitely, and hopefully that'll come out at some point. There's also, so we know that a 4K restoration has been done of Amadeus, but where that's going to go, I don't know.
Is it the theatrical or the director's cut? Because the theatrical,
I think both. I don't know for sure, but I think a restoration's been done. So
you know what? That might be something.
Maybe is a Warner Brothers title at some point, or it could be a Criterion.
I was going to say that's a Criterion title. I'll bet.
Yeah. And so my understanding is that next year you're going to see some of the really beloved Christmas titles from Warner Brothers in 4K, probably Elf and Christmas Story and things like that. And yeah, and then obviously, I think that longer term, I think you can count on the Alien films coming at probably next year. Abyss, Avatar, I think you'll likely see that. That seems likely for the end of this year, given that the sequel's coming out to theaters. Abyss could probably come out next year. Warner Brothers in particular is a studio that's interesting because they've got The Right Stuff. They've got Chariots of Fire. They've got some really good films yet that they haven't,
God, I would love The Right Stuff in 4K Atmos.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you and I continue to pine for a Speed Racer 4K with a proper Atmos soundtrack.
Well, there is talk.
Yeah.
There is talk of Speed Racer in 4K. By the way, partly because of me. I just want to.
And you and I both keep lobbying George.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So yeah. So who knows? I mean, so there's a lot, and that's just a couple of studios, right? There's obviously from Sony, we know that Drive is coming. We know that Heavy Metal's coming. So there are good things. There are definitely good things coming from some of these studios. Now, Disney's the frustrating one because when you think of all the great titles, the Hollywood Pictures titles, all the great stuff. I mean, I really wish that Disney would either jump on that themselves or start licensing their catalog out because, oh my God, there's so many great live action titles. The Disney classic live action stuff, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, a lot of that kind of stuff. There's, Open
How
Range.
great would that look in 4K?
Oh yeah. There's the Open Range, The Rock. There's so many, Armageddon, Pearl Harbor, there's just, plus all the Fox stuff that we haven't gotten yet. Yep. Master and Commander, Kingdom of Heaven, the rest of the Die Hard films. I mean, there's just so much stuff. So,
Terrier says, if To Live and Die in LA does not get an A+ for program content, Ethan may be coming for Bill. Well, we'll see. I don't know.
Hey.
Chris C says, when are we going to get Star Crash in 4K? Look, man, I'd be so there for that. I would love Star Crash in 4K, a new Atmos mix. Also, it's Caroline Munro's birthday today. Wow. I have 2 Caroline Munro action figures, including my Star Crash action figure that's right over there. I have a 6-scale Caroline Munro Star Crash figure, and I will never, ever part with it. Oh, this is a good question. 200 Watt Studio says, how does Kino Lorber keep doing 4Ks of Criterion titles?
Well, when Criterion licenses those titles, they don't get the rights forever.
Right.
They license them for a limited time for a limited release, and then they have to let them go. And so those would technically be MGM titles. And Criterion has gotten, Kino Lorber Studio Classics has gotten the license to do a certain number of 4K catalog titles, and obviously it's a pretty generous list that they have access to because just the stuff they've announced so far, hinted at, is bananas.
Yeah,
and we're not even into this is just through the first quarter of this year.
Yeah, it's insane.
I can't wait to see what else could be on that list that they're going to bring out in the next year or two.
Yeah, I do not know. I would love to, and it's great because 4K is actually on the upswing in terms of sales compared to say Blu-ray, and that's a good thing. I love that.
People who love discs, man, and more power to them.
Well, listen, sir, this has been a fantastic chat. Thanks for pinch hitting for Dieter Bastian.
As always, man. And Dieter, I can't wait to hear about Scream and Love Out.
He'll be back next week. We'll be showing the things that we've bought. I got to get, I don't know why I haven't purchased Dune yet. I need to go get Dune.
Gotta get yourself
And
Dune,
then
man.
Dieter's getting me that box set from Coke. Actually, he's getting you that set too, I believe.
Yeah, he's getting us both. Yeah,
Yeah, he's getting it. Yes.
Thank goodness, because I got to see that documentary and the TV cuts and remastered, all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's Georgie says, Rob, that wasn't a joke. Just check Star Trek Into Darkness Meteorite Edition. You will love it, but it's hard to get. Oh, well.
Wow. Google that, man.
Let's see.
I've never even heard of that.
I've never even heard of it either.
Does it come with what's the name of that ship? The Dreadnought ship. Maybe it's all melted and crunched up, and that's what the
Meteorite Edition. Let's see. Win one-off exclusive Meteorite Blu-ray of Star Trek. What the hell is this? Okay, let's find out what this. Wow, there's even a picture of it.
Is that a bootleg or that's got to be a bootleg?
Nope. It's what? Okay, here it is. Check this out. This is from. Well, it's not the link is now. Here we go. Wow, this is. I gotta say, this is actually pretty cool. Okay, let me put this. I'm gonna put this picture up so you can see this. I did not know this exists. See, I don't know. This is why I couldn't get the job necessarily, because there is Star Trek stuff I don't know about apparently.
Total film.
Yeah, so here we go. I got this picture. I'm going to put it up right now. This is in fact this is the one-off Meteorite Blu-ray of Star Trek Into Darkness with total film. Want to get your hands on one of a kind, world's first Meteorite Blu-ray? Paramount has created the ultimate opportunity for one lucky Trekkie and space enthusiast, a one-off Star Trek Into Darkness Blu-ray with special edition packaging featuring an authentic 497-year-old meteorite. The space rock from the Nanton meteorite shower, which was witnessed falling in, I can't even pronounce this, Guangxi Zhuang province in China in 1516 AD, has been hand-carved into the shape of the internationally recognizable Starfleet symbol and will feature prominently on the exceptionally exclusive Blu-ray special packaging, which includes the Meteorite Certificate of Authenticity. Total Film have now launched their exclusive competition to win this one-off collectible, and fans can enter here. Now, this is from 2017. Wow, Bill.
Rock shop. You can get yourself a piece of Meteor for like $20.
Come on, man.
That's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
But somebody owns it. Somebody owns it. I just wish it was not. If it was Star Trek: The Motion Picture, I would want it. I would hunt it down. It would be something I'm like, okay, they should. As a matter of fact, they should do that again for Star Trek: The Motion Picture. That's pretty crazy.
That's just
the Meteorite
that's
edition.
Crazy. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, is what that is.
Thanks for that one, Georgie. That's amazing. I didn't even know that was a real thing.
One of one. It better come with a certificate that says one of one.
That's amazing. And you're right, Georgie. I would love it, and it is hard to get, but I wouldn't love it because it's Star Trek Into Darkness. It's not my favorite movie.
But you might have to have it anyway.
Well, that's the thing. If you're going to have your Star Trek on home, you have to have the Italian Steelbook releases of Star Trek, the Star Trek movies. That was really cool. That were available in Italy. And then
by the way, I just noticed my laptop battery is getting low here. I don't want to just drop out on you, but if something happens, that's why.
All right. Well, we will end this show. Bill, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me at Bill Hunt Bits on Facebook and Twitter, and also at The Digital Bits. I think it's at The Digital Bits on both places, and obviously thedigitalbits.com. And
you have been writing a series of science fiction novels, have you not?
I have. In fact, just today working on them, and hopefully something that'll see the light of day this year.
And the first one is called what?
Well, the first novel I wrote is called Only Those Who Risk, but I'm currently writing a shorter prequel called Where Spacers Dare.
Ooh.
Which is that'll be probably the first thing that sees the light of day. So
that's also the prequel is going to be first.
Yeah, and these things just take time.
Right. Well, I'm very
writing a novel. It turns out is a pretty long and involved process. Much less writing multiple novels, which is what I'm doing.
Well, that's going to be great. We'll have to keep a lookout for that.
We'll see.
And are you going to go like the Andy Weir route and self-publish? Like,
So I think what I might do is self-publish the prequel, and then hopefully get a publisher that way. But if it goes well, we'll see.
are you going to make a limited edition hardcover that you're going to crowdfund?
Yeah, there'll probably be a Kickstarter with like a physical hardcover version with beautiful artwork and all of that jazz. And
because when you're getting ready to do that, I got to promote it on our channel.
I would appreciate that. As soon as I've got any news on that, I'm writing my fingers off. I'm every single day trying to squeeze out as much time as I can. I'm really digging it though. It's one of the most interesting and thrilling and engaging and enjoyable things I've ever done. So,
well, thanks very much. I want to thank Bill Hunt and thank the Digital Bits website, thedigitalbits.com. If you haven't already, check it out. And you can find out all of the news on a daily basis. Bill posts every day, right?
Yep, every day. Yeah, pretty much we post something every day. Absolutely.
All right. Well, join us next week for Let's Get Physical Media. I want to thank all of you who have generously supported this episode of the show via Super Chats and tips. Thank you so very much. I want to thank my moderating staff. Brian Hepburn is here. Lord Toth is here. Justin Toner is here. And I want to thank you. Oops, I just clicked off of my own show. But I want to thank you all for the work you do as the moderators you are, because you are great. And
thanks to everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, and which is great. I just want to see. I don't know who else is here. I think that's everybody. But if I missed one of you, thanks for being here. And on that note, Let's Get Physical Media, episode number 55, with special guest Bill Hunt, now comes to a close.